He was 14, insanely talented, and just started to rise in the Fortnite space after winning FNCS. But behind the scenes, he was hiding something that would get him banned and ruin his career overnight. Back in 2020, Fortnite was at a new all-time peak. Millions of players, massive prize pools, and kids turning into instant celebrities. Among them was Kquid, a prodigy from Australia. During this time, despite having the lowest global player count, OCE competitive was really on the map thanks to players like Fresh, the X2 Twins, Laserbeam, and more, consistently pulling millions of views every video. And many thought Kquid would soon be at that level. After all, he had just started making a name for himself and was already averaging 500 to 1,000 viewers each stream, and pulling in tens of thousands of views each video. Also keep in mind, this was all only a few months after getting his first big break. At this point, he was making tons of money from not only tournaments but mainly content creation. If he kept at this, he would be setting his future up to easily retire early on, and he was only 14. But on May 10th, 2020, he would throw this opportunity many would kill for away. From placing top 5 at Australia's largest LAN event, to winning FNCS, to banned, to now almost becoming a millionaire at 19, his life has been crazy. But to understand how this all happened, let's reverse the clock to March 25th, 2006. On this day in Australia, Kai Eaton aka Kquid was born. His childhood would be considered very normal, and like many kids, he would get into gaming at a very young age. But it was thanks to his dad that he would start younger than most. At just 3 years old, he was already playing Super Smash Bros. And beating his father. This was just the start to his obsession with gaming. Soon he would move on to Minecraft and get his very first PC. After getting his first computer, the world was really opened up to Kquid, and he would pretty much be constantly online gaming every chance he got. Now there was actually a short time in 2017 at the age of 11 where he tried his hand at Rubik's Cube competitions and was pretty decent, competing at events hosted by the World Cube Association. However, he would quit this after a year or so. But this was the very start of his competitive drive. Competing in these events made him want to improve and become better, which obviously would continue later on in his career. But then, just 1 year later, Fortnite Battle Royale was officially released, and of course he hopped on it early. At first though, he never had dreams of becoming a pro. Instead, he tried his hand at content creation. At the time, he really looked up to creators like Laserbeam and Lachlan, who would actually try to help him during his ban, but we'll get into that later. In June of 2018, Kquid would upload his very first Fortnite video. For the next year, he would upload high kill games and montages without seeing much success. The quality of these videos would slowly get a bit better with every upload, but nothing that captured the audience and got him a bunch of views, since these videos just weren't edited super well. And alongside YouTube, he also tried streaming periodically in 2018, but also didn't get many views. However, there was one thing that was clear as day, and that was how quickly he was improving. Looking at his gameplay compared to other top players at the time like Daquan or Tfue, honestly, their skills looked pretty similar. Soon though, Kquid would completely shift his focus from content to competitive. And when the very first Fortnite online tournaments would begin in early 2019, he would obviously get hooked. Kquid would play in every single event he could, and soon, not only him, but everyone around the world would have an opportunity of a lifetime. The Fortnite World Cup would get announced, a solo and duo LAN event that had a $40 million prize pool. With qualifiers happening all over the world, this was his chance to prove to not only himself, but to everyone that a 13-year-old kid nobody heard of can play alongside the best of the best. And in week 1 of solos, he would somewhat do that, getting his first official earnings after placing just barely in the top 200. It was only $100, but to a 13-year-old playing Fortnite, this was huge. However, it wasn't until week 5 where he would place again, but this time he popped off. Kquid managed to place 5th, earning himself $1,500. Now in the top regions, this could have actually been enough to qualify him for the finals in New York. But since OCE has the smallest player base, in order to get into the LAN event, you needed to place first. So unfortunately he didn't make it. However, this was still a massive accomplishment. And with there still being 5 more weeks of qualifiers, anything could happen. Unfortunately though, throughout the rest of them, he wouldn't get within the top 200 again. But still, this was huge for him, and going into Season X, he was going to have his first big break. During the World Cup weeks, Kquid would stop all types of content. According to him, this was because despite having a really good PC, he didn't want the extra delay caused by OBS to be the reason he didn't qualify. But after seeing the success, he would decide to start streaming and uploading again, making sure to create videos around his tournaments. Kquid continued to get better, and his placements would reflect that. He was making a name for himself as one of OCE's youngest and best up-and-coming players. And it wouldn't be long before now when he would win his very first tournament, that being a solo cash cup. This would earn him $1,000, and he would see a pretty decent increase in viewership, going from around 10 to 50 average viewers. Throughout the rest of 2019, he continued to play extremely well, all while streaming everything. To list off his achievements in just a 3-month time span after winning that cash cup, he would qualify for the Season X FNCS Grand Finals, placing 10th, come 3rd and 1st during 2 of the Squad FNCS qualifier weeks, place 6th in that Grand Finals, get 2 second places in solo cash cups, and win a Winter Royale day. These 3 months could not have been better for Kquid. He went from literally a no-name kid to now averaging over 150 viewers every stream and having a combined total earnings of around $20,000. But arguably most importantly, every single person in the OCE scene knew his name, and soon everyone would be familiar with him, but not for the best of reasons. But for now, he was known as the best 13-year-old Fortnite player in the world and had a promising career ahead of him. It was now February of 2020, and he was going to have the biggest moment of his life thus far. This month, the Australian Open would be hosted. This was a $400,000 in-person LAN event with not only all of OCE's best players competing, but also the top players from around the world like Benji Fishy, Epic Whale, and Zate, just to name a few. This was a solo tournament with only 6 games, so it was guaranteed to be stacked. And luckily for Kquid, he would get invited due to his recent performances, but nobody expected him to do as well as he would. When all was said and done, at his first ever LAN event, Kquid would place 5th, earning over $7,000. If it wasn't already clear, this kid was the future of OCE and destined for greatness. However, nobody would expect that Chapter 2 Season 2 would be the best and worst season of his life. Kquid, who had just now turned 14, was living his best life. His content was doing amazing, reaching the milestone of having over 200,000 followers across all platforms. He had connections with many large creators and was quickly becoming one of the best Fortnite players ever. Now, so far it was becoming clear that Kquid would do a lot better in game modes that had less players on his team, and soon he was going to prove this. This season had a duo FNCS, and he would end up playing alongside Fresh's previous teammate Jinx, who was easily one of the best in OCE at the time. Together, they dominated the entire season, placing top 3 in almost everything. Going into the grand finals, everyone had this duo as their top picks to win. He was on such a hot streak up until now that everyone knew an FNCS win was coming, and if he could do it right now and then, it would cement him as the best player in OCE at the time. So with everything relying on this one tournament, he would make sure to seize the moment. Kquid would go on to do it, winning FNCS at 14, becoming one of the youngest players to ever do so. He was now easily the #1 player in OCE, and the best part is that he was streaming the entire thing. This would massively increase his viewership to now averaging 1,000 viewers each stream. But luckily for him, this wasn't the only FNCS during the season. There was also the solo invitationals only 1 month later, and considering he had just placed 5th at a solo LAN, everyone thought he was going to win back to back. Everything was going so well for Kquid that I'm sure he felt like everything was just a dream, until it quickly turned into a nightmare. On May 10th, 2020, Kquid would boot up his stream to play the second week of the solo invitational qualifiers. To nobody's shock, he was off to a really good start in the tournament, and it was looking like if he kept up this streak, he was going to easily qualify to the finals, if not win that qualifier. But then after loading into a game and hopping onto the battle bus, his entire world would crash around him.
You got 4? Like 4 viewers? That's... What? Who logged in? Who logged into my account? Wait, what? I just got logged out of my account! Hold on, I think my brother,
Out of nowhere, Kquid would be banned from Fortnite, and from this moment up until now, over 5 years later, he still proclaims his innocence. But after continuously being lied to and misled time and time again throughout the years, everything has become distorted. So let's get everything straightened out and find out what really happened to Kquid. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, double check that you're subscribed because most of you aren't. Now at first, everybody thought that this was just a weird mistake or bug on Epic's end since nobody had accused him of cheating before. The entirety community would back up Kquid since this isn't the first time something like this has happened to a pro. On top of that, he literally streams everything, so it's impossible for him to actually cheat, right?
No.
The day after getting banned, Kquid would release a video explaining what happened and all the possible reasons for it, with the main excuse that it was maybe some software that he had downloaded for schoolwork.
But the reason I could have gotten hardware banned on my main PC could have been because I was doing maybe schoolwork and I had like a file open that could have, because the way they get onto like the cloud for all the school stuff, could have messed with the proxy. I don't really know much about it. Could have messed with the net, and they banned me a bit after.
Throughout this video, he kept reinforcing that he had done nothing wrong and he seemed confident that he would be unbanned within a few days. So for the time being, everyone thought that this was just some massive mistake. In fact, he even got Aussie Antics and Lachlan to reach out to Epic Games on his behalf, since at the time Aussie was on the official broadcast and obviously Lachlan is one of the largest creators in Fortnite. Now we never actually found out the answer that Epic gave them, but it didn't matter because soon a bombshell was about to drop. It was now May 14th, just 4 days after being banned, and there wasn't much of an update. But then Serpent AU would come out and expose him.
The Twitter account PC Aim Assist tags Serpent in a tweet and he asked them, about their product. And they say one of their players used it in the last Solo Cup on the 1st of October 2019, and they keep it all confidential. They don't say who did it, but they say the applications they use is VJoy, SCP, VBus, and Universal Control Remapper. Now, if we go to the present day, we've got 14th of May 2020, 10:29 PM from his Twitch stream. This is his desktop. That is the exact same applications as PC Aim Assist said. He got some word that we found this out, and he made it tweet longer before I could even record this. He said, pretty much you can pause and read, he said that he tried cheating in Season 9 and it didn't work, but he factory reset his PC and it was still there. But it's like, dude, you got banned now. Look at the date down there. vClient Pro 2020-04-14. That's exactly 1 month ago, before you were banned, before you had any issues.
Now this video had proof that was pretty hard to deny, and coming from Serpent, it just made everything more damning. For those of you who are unfamiliar with him, he ended up growing a massive following on YouTube, being quote unquote the fastest editor in the world, but then he would get exposed for cheating and using macros. However, later on, Serpent would make some claims that would blow everything out of the water, but that won't be until far down the line. It looked like things were officially over for Kquid, but then he would respond on Twitter saying that he was going to release a full statement video on YouTube the next day defending himself. However, this video would end up getting delayed. At this point, everyone who was on Kquid's side had turned on him. His main defense, which was that he streamed everything so he couldn't possibly cheat, is just dumb because so many people have done this before. However, there was one that had the most weight to it. How could he cheat at an official LAN event where he placed 5th? Well, this would soon get debunked by Zate and others who played in that event. Now, they didn't outright say that they knew he had cheats on his PC, but they said that the supervisors for this event didn't really seem to care and players were downloading a whole bunch of stuff onto their computers. So it wasn't impossible that he could have installed soft aim, which he had been accused of. With so much more evidence against him out there, everyone was just waiting on Kquid to finally release the statement. But long story short, this statement would never actually come. He would delay it a whole bunch of times, and then part of his statement would get leaked, which led to him delaying it even more, and then he would take a 3-month break from the internet. When he finally returned, it was now October, over 5 whole months since being banned. Still, we had no answers. He would end up doing an interview with the Fortnite guy where he would still claim that he was innocent and never cheated. However, there were still some weird things going on in his defense. According to Kquid, after being banned, he ended up getting paid out the money that he made from FNCS and other events, which obviously doesn't usually happen if the person actually cheated. But at the same time, Epic Games support had stopped responding to him altogether. Not much else really came from this interview besides him saying that he didn't actually have any solid proof that he didn't cheat, which is the main reason for that statement video getting delayed over and over again. This is essentially all the information we got about the situation for now. Kquid still continued to stream here and there playing other games like Valorant, but he just couldn't stop thinking about Fortnite. We later found out before the ban that he was about to get signed with one of the largest organizations in Fortnite, Power, right before everything went down.
I will say that was Power. Like, obviously I was keeping quiet mainly just for the team's sake. It was pretty obvious that I was meant to join it. Yeah, so I couldn't join them, which was like completely fair enough. I I wouldn't do that if I was any org owner. And yeah, in terms of joining other orgs, like it's tricky. It would be tricky.
So that just made this entire situation for him that much worse. It looked like there really wasn't much else for him to do besides move on with his life. But this wasn't technically the end of his Fortnite journey. Kquid went on to make a new account after realizing he wasn't hardware banned, but after playing and streaming, he would get struck with the ban hammer once again. He would try this a few more times, but it always resulted in the same outcome. We were now in 2021. Kquid's dreams of continuing a career in Fortnite were officially over. Nobody seemed to care anymore, and despite him still claiming innocence, the evidence speaks for itself, and he was never unbanned. But wait, I mentioned earlier in this video that he was well on his way to becoming a millionaire, if not already one, at just 19. So how is that possible? Well, in short, crypto. Even though he was only 15, he still made tons of money from not just Fortnite earnings, but also content creation. From just official and unofficial tournaments, he probably made around $50,000. And this doesn't even include all the money that he made from streaming and content creation, which was definitely a lot. He would then take this money and use it to get into crypto and NFTs. With this money, he was able to get into coins like Doge, for example, early on and make some decent money from it. This new hobby and passion he found was nice, but right now he was still nowhere near millionaire status. That being said, he was still making a couple thousand here and there, which is massive for being a kid. But still, despite everything, he couldn't turn his back on Fortnite. He decided he wanted to get back into competitive, however, this is where everything got so much weirder. Fortnite started inviting Kquid to invite-only events while he was still banned. If this wasn't weird on its own, Serpent, the one who technically exposed him in the first place, would put out a tweet pretty much saying Kquid never cheated. So what was going on? Was he still banned? Did he cheat? Everything was up in the air. With even Kquid not knowing the answer to any of this, he tried his luck making a new account and streaming again. And it seemed like he was back. It had been 1 year and 3 months since he had been banned, and now he was back playing tournaments. And for a while, everything was fine. He played a couple of events and even FNCS after getting confirmation from Epic Games themselves that he can compete. But then when things finally looked up for Kquid, his account was once again terminated.
As much as I expected this, right? I thought after playing like Booger Cup, all that they would have caught on. Like that they would have banned me, so I don't know why they banned me now. Like they had so much opportunity to, but they only banned me now. They said I can play, which is awesome. I'll get a screenshot of that later. I'm gonna contact them again, and no, I am indeed actually banned. Yeah, Epic, you're a terrible company. Go follow my teammates. I'll put their ats in replies because I feel really bad. I'm not gonna be streaming today. I don't know what I'm gonna do. See you boys.
So yeah, this was extremely confusing and nothing was making sense. However, things were about to look up for him. After again talking to support, he found out that the reason for this new ban was due to his hardware ID, meaning if he got a completely new PC, then he could play again. We just went into 2022 and Kquid announced that sometime this year he was going to buy a new PC and give Fortnite another shot. To keep things short though, this wouldn't happen, and on the 2-year anniversary of his ban, he would make a little statement saying that he was over it now and just didn't really know what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. He did actually come out with the quote-unquote real reason for being banned, saying that he used a spoofer because he was getting random errors, and when asking around, people told him that using a spoofer would help, which obviously ended up being against Fortnite's terms of service. So apparently that was the reason for his ban, but at this point it's just impossible to say what really happened since he has completely changed his story so many times. And the one who only really knows the truth is Kquid. After this, he went really quiet on the internet. He tried a few times to stream Fortnite, but ended up being banned shortly after each time. So if it somehow wasn't clear at this point, there was no way Kquid could play Fortnite again. At least that's what you'd think. Throughout 2023 and 2024, he would update us periodically on how his life was going, and in April he announced that he had officially graduated from high school, but he had no idea what to do with the rest of his life still. He did mention though that he had always loved content creation and streaming and teased a possible comeback, but this never happened and he hasn't streamed in well over 2 years. So Kquid, now 18, didn't really have anywhere to go in life. You might be wondering what happened to all that crypto stuff. Well, from 2022 to early 2024, the entire market around crypto completely crashed and it wasn't really worth much. So he pretty much stopped doing it. But soon that was going to change. Quid hadn't talked about crypto in years, and over the last 6 months he was completely silent. But he would come back with a big surprise. Some of you are probably familiar with the craze in meme coins, and at the beginning of 2025 they were really massive. And well, since he was previously in the crypto scene, he got into all of this really early. And he had become really good at this, sharing in his first tweet back that he had made over $115,000 on just one singular coin. This was insane, and he would post periodically these big wins, making $11,000, $30,000, $60,000. It was clear there was some big money to make. Now, unfortunately, it's impossible to know how much he has made since he hasn't given out his wallet he uses to trade publicly, but assuming these are his biggest wins, it's not impossible to think that he is worth at least a few $100,000, and maybe over $1 million at this point. Funny enough though, he would tweet in April that he somehow was unbanned from Fortnite playing tournaments, showing a screenshot of him loading into one. However, he would also share in the same post that he is never coming back to the game. We are now at the end of 2025 and Kquid hasn't made any posts since August, which of course was a P&L of him up $30,000 on the Kanye coin. So yeah, even though crypto this year has been up and down a lot, it seems like Kquid has made tons of money off of this, and none of it would have been possible if he hadn't made so much from Fortnite in the first place. With all these twists and turns to the story, it's impossible to tell lies from the truth. And at this point, the only one who really knows what happened is Kquid, who still claims his innocence to this day. And that's how a 14-year-old stole $50,000 from Fortnite. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and check out one of these videos here. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your days. Peace out.